here, like every single criteria in that table, they completely tied across the board. So this is why we have this situation, and it is really unusual. And I'm really excited to feature this one because this is such, this is for groups ultimately, right? This is for fighting for your country, getting into group stages. So with that, let's go into the team sheets. And Henry, we were talking slightly before stream, how interesting Steinar's team is. Henry, I'm going to hand this to you.
It's such a cool team. We get one of those unique picks that we've seen on a couple of teams in that Zoroark and the Hisuian Arcanine as well. But the big thing here, I don't think we've seen any of it at all. That Cramorant. I don't think I've seen it in VGC at all. It's such a unique Pokemon. But paired with that Gastrodon, it can become a massive threat. We've seen not a whole lot of these water types coming out aside from those rain teams. But here the Cramorant using Surf, that ability Gulp Missile, really loving that move. But also next to the Storm Drain Gastrodon, you can just spam that Surf button as much as you want and just get those big boosts on Gastrodon to really start dishing out some damage.
Oh, I think I want to cover the achievements of Steinar before we talk more about Cramorant. This is a really interesting team overall. Cramorant just piques my interest personally. So with Steinar, they competed in the World Cup on behalf of their team 5 times. They day 2 EYC twice. They day 2 Lille Regional in 2024, and they recently this year it's got top 32 in Stockholm. So strong player with some strong results. So this is interesting. So Cramorant with Gulp Missile, right? We were talking about before stream, Henry, right? The Gulp Missile. So if you use in particular scenarios, if they use the Surf move, then they take a certain form, and then that has, after effects depending on what form that they're in.
Yeah, so Gulp Missile, kind of in the name, looking at it as when it clicks Surf, loading that missile. It uses Surf if it's above that 50% health, then it will kind of catch a fish, an Arrokuda, in its beak, and if it gets hit after that by any attacking move, it'll spit back that Arrokuda at the Pokemon that's damaged it and deal just that little bit of chip. But the really interesting part is when it's under that 50%, when it uses Surf, it doesn't catch an Arrokuda, it doesn't catch that fish that it wants. It catches a Pikachu of all things. And when that gets sent back at something, it also has the added benefit of paralyzing them, which we know is such a powerful effect in competitive Pokemon. Not just halving the speed of whatever is paralyzed, but also sometimes it's just not going to move at all.
Exactly, and so that's really scary for the opponent to consider. We've also got Throat Sprays or Aristella. So that's a bit of it takes a turn or two to set up with Hyper Voice, activating that Throat Spray, again the plus to its special attack and hitting really hard with Shadow Balls. It's also got the supportive move with Will-O-Wisp as well. And then there's the Dragonite also, which is slightly different to normal. Obviously, the 3 of the moves are the same, but it's Terra Blast, Terra Fairy, Dragonite. So that is going to hit very hard into be super effective into opposing dragons, and really threaten other Pokemon as well with that move.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those Dragonite tend to only carry Scale Shot. So when coming up against, as an attacking move, of course. So when coming up against opposing Fairy types or Pokemon that can Terastallize into Fairy types, it's been a bit of a struggle, seeing that they generally carry Haze, Tailwind, and Protect. But we've seen a few of them popping up lately with little added moves, sometimes an extreme speed, sometimes something like a Stomping Tantrum. But Terra Fairy, Terra Blast is a new one altogether that can just hit so many things for such good damage. And then, as you were saying, a much more offensive Zoroark than what we've normally seen, rounded out by your standard Rillaboom that you see, that high horsepower that's been picking up in popularity over that U-turn. People prioritizing the damage into things like Incineroar, Chaladon before it Terrors, which it so loves to do, rather than that pivot option. But then also the Arcanine is a bit of a unique set that we haven't seen in this format either. In that Terra Normal Choice Band, we've seen that moveset on so many things, that Terra Normal, Choice Band, extreme speed, hitting hard and moving first, but we haven't really seen it on Arcanine or really at all in this format.
Yeah, that's right. It's also got Close Combat, which again is unusual on Choice Band Arcanine, from what I've seen in the past. I wonder if that maybe KOs some particular Pokemon that might trouble Arcanine. and they have the close combat there just to threaten. So this is Steinar's team. I want to move on now to his opponent's team. So this is Ken Nakamoto from Singapore. They competed 3 times in the World Cup, and obviously they got top 16 in the Singapore Championships 2024. Strong player, bringing out what we've seen this team a few times in Regulation H 2.0. But yeah, it's the Wheezing and the Toe Scroll combination. You've also got Tailwind. It's unusual with Kilowatt Typhlosion. That's quite a unique combination, I suppose, with the Choice Scarf and the Terrify Eruption coming from Typhlosion. So definitely going to hit things that even resist it very, very hard. And on top of that, you've got the Assault Vest Incineroar and a Terra Ground Life Orb Garchomp. So not on a completely unusual team, just a very strong core.
Yeah, that Suian Typhlosion there, one of the best Pokemon against it being that Incineroar, which you don't really want to switch in or lead Intimidate into something like a Kilowattrel, or if the Garchomp's out there, you can't even Intimidate it if something like that Wheezing is around. So really covering well that Typhlosion's big weakness, because Incineroar is so commonly used. And then the rest of the team as well, like we saw that Wolf use it to such good effect, that Wheezing Toadstool. Yep. I believe he was the one that originally popularized this core. The Mycelium Might, with the neutralizing gas, whether you switch it in or switch it out, it works in such kind of a unique way, especially when it comes to opposing Goldango. It was really cool to see, and it's really cool to see that still holding form now.
Exactly, and yeah, as you said, it could threaten opposing Goldengos and outspeed them with Wheezing on the field. And with that, Henry, we are ready to go into game 1 between these 2 trainers and these 2 countries.
I'm so excited for this. It's just 2 powerful players and such cool teams to go up against each other. It makes for such a unique matchup. And
okay, so we've got the Wheezing Toadscroll lead from Ken. And on the other side of the field from Steinar, we've got the Cramorant, shiny Cramorant, and the Rillaboom lead.
Yeah, so off the bat, we're able to see some of the more unique parts of these teams, that Cramorant that we're so excited to kind of see what it does and how much it can accomplish in these games. Up against that Wheezing and Toadscroll combination. We didn't really touch on it in team preview, but the choice specs on this Wheezing really threatening a lot of damage, a lot more than you'd normally see.
That's right, and we just see a fake out from Rillaboom into the Wheezing, stopping it moving this spin. There's a Spore into the Cramorant. It does outspeed it, and it does put it to sleep. So strong start from Ken here. Cramorant unable to move after being asleep and taking its first in asleep. And we're just going to finally see Wheezing flinch and unable to move. So a strong turn 1 from Ken here.
Yeah, just really revealing that that speed that Toadscroll has. But Toadscroll also carrying that Acid Spray next to that Specs Wheezing, really threatening a lot of damage, really onto either of these Pokemon. We saw the Focus Sash on that Cramorant, but something like an Acid Spray plus a Dazzling Gleam can easily break that. But there's that Acid Spray, not quite onto the Cramorant.
There it is, there's the Acid Spray, dropping it, partially dropping. Rillaboom's special defense, but Cramorant does wake up after 1 turn of sleep, and it does set the Tailwind up for Steinar here. And Wheezing, Rillaboom moves first because of the Tailwind. High horsepower goes off into Wheezing, nearly knocks it out. Sludge Bomb's going to come out to Rillaboom and knock it out due to those special defense drops, so Rillaboom goes down.
Yeah, a huge hit. That combination of Choice Spec Sludge Bomb, Acid Spray, both super effective poison moves, just too much for that Rillaboom to handle. But showing why the Tailwind is not on that Dragonite. Cramorant really enjoyed its snap. It's back to stay. Getting that Tailwind set up for the Arcanine. This huge Choice Band Arcanine, really threatening those big attacks. But we've got the Air Slash on the Cramorant as well. So the Toadscroll is also really under threat, even though it's got that ground type with the Arcanine in front of it. And this Wheezing is so low that it's very likely to go down to anything that comes its way.
Yeah, Toadscroll heavily threatened here by both Arcanine and Cramorant in Tailwind. So maybe we'll see a defensive play here, maybe we'll see it swap it out. But equally, Steinar, now with the Tailwind set, is in quite a strong position, strong offensive position here to threaten both knockouts on both Pokemon here. So we do see Ken keep their Pokemon in, and we're going to see a Terastallization from Steinar on that Arcanine, so the Terra Normal coming out, making those extreme speeds all those more powerful, with the Choice Band boosting those up. And there's a reaction here. There's another Terastallization on the side of Ken's field, it is that toe scroll, so it will go into that terrestrialization of the water type. No longer weak to fire moves or the flying type moves from Killer Wattrel. We do see a rock slide from the Arcanine that is enough to knock out the Weezing. Does roughly 45% to the toe scroll's HP bar. And we're going to see Cramorant move next here. Oh, Intimidate does go off now because Weezing is now off the field. And Air Slash comes out from Cramorant. That is not enough to knock out Toescroll. And a Spore comes into the Arcanine slot, sending that to sleep.
Yeah, the big defensive terrestrializations coming up from both sides this time. Arcanine not wanting to take something like a potential Earth Power. Toedscruel not wanting to take something like a Flare Blitz or a Air Slash, but instead of those offensive moves coming out from Ken's side, we actually just see the Spore coming out onto that Arcanine, putting it to sleep, making sure that big offensive threat isn't able to utilize it as well as it would like to in that Tailwind. But the Killer Wattrel coming out now, super effective, 4 times super effective against this Cramorant, and really not having to worry about those rock slides that could be coming out.
Yes, exactly, Henry. But this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the Surf and the Storm Drain come out from the Gastrodon, raising a special attack. The Surf is going to come out here. It's going to do roughly half the Killer Wattrel, not enough to knock out the Toescroll. And we're going to see Killer Wattrel set their own Tailwind for the Ken's side of the field here. And there is another Spore coming out into the Cramorant, so that is also going to sleep.
Yeah, Cramorant taking another nap, but we did see it get that Arrokuda. That Gulp Missile is now active. If it takes a hit from either of these Pokemon, it's going to be firing back even while it's asleep, just with that little bit of chip damage. But this Gastrodon is now boosted. It is not really worried about taking those electric type moves, and he's such a bulky Pokemon in general. This Toedscruel not carrying the grass type move that we normally see on it. Generally, we've seen an Energy Ball, a Bullet Seed, not on this one. It is instead opted for that Rage Powder, Acid Spray, and Earth Power on top of the Spore that we've already seen. So really, it can start dishing out a huge amount of damage, and that Toedscruel, even though it resists those big, the Ice Beam that can be coming out, unlike normal, it is so low that it might not be able to take it anyway.
Yes, exactly. And because of that, maybe we're seeing both players play a little bit defensive here, both their Pokemon. Gastrodon in a good position, Cramorant taking its first turn of sleep, and the Tailwind pettering out now, so Ken in a strong position with Tailwind up.
Yeah, so the roles have reversed here, speed control wise. Ken's all of a sudden on top when it comes to that speed, but that Toedscruel really threatening those Spores. The Gastrodon and the Cramorant have been threatening really good damage, but they can't do that if they're asleep. Ken's Killer Wattrel really looking like it's in a spot where it just wants to start getting off some Air Slashes, but it can't go for those big discharges that it normally likes to go for next to the Toedscruel because of that terrestrialization on the Toedscruel. It's going to go down to something like a discharge, even though that is such a good move to be hitting into the Cramorant. It's
exactly
going to be really yeah, it's interesting to see there.
Okay, we see an Air Slash come out to that Gastrodon and an Acid Spray to follow up. So if there's a flinch here, this could be an interesting following turn, but the special defense of Gastrodon does go down. Cramorant still asleep in this turn, and Gastrodon, we're going to see Gastrodon move next. It goes for the Ice Beam into Killer Wattrel. That should be enough to knock it out. It does knock it out, so Killer Wattrel is down and out, meaning there's three Pokemon left for Ken here. Or two Pokemon left for Ken.
Yeah, so not really the speed tier that Ken would ideally be in there. That Killer Wattrel unfortunately moving before the Acid Spray, but the Acid Spray really setting up for the Toedscruel to try to start dealing a bit bigger damage to this Gastrodon with something like maybe an Earth Power. But the Garchomp is also there, a powerhouse that we've seen across many formats before, holding that Life Orb, and able to dish out some huge damage with those ground type moves. But the Cramorant, it's been asleep for a while now, has that potential to wake up. And also the Gastrodon, while it is a bit on the weaker side on its special defense now, it is still one of those very bulky Pokemon, and it has an Ice Beam attack that Garchomp can't terrestrialize out of because of that Toedscruel.
And we do see now the Dragon Claw taking Gastrodon down into the red health, and an Earth Power follow-up, so Gastrodon will go down here. I feel like if they could have protected there and maybe got a tail move with Cramorant, but Gastrodon does go down on this turn, so what is Cramorant going to do? Is it going to be able to wake up? It's still asleep here, so still taking a cat nap on the field and not being able to do anything here. It's still asleep.
Yeah, so that leaves both of Steinar's Pokemon asleep at the moment. I don't believe this Arcanine has taken uh, any turns of sleep yet, so it's still
No, it hasn't.
going to be guaranteed that one turn that it will be sleeping. And this Garchomp, we saw how much damage it was able to deal to that Gastrodon just then with just a raw Dragon Claw. There's so much offensive power coming out from Ken here. Steinar's Pokemon really want to be waking up. A Tailwind or something here like that here from Steinar's Cramorant would be really useful, but it might not actually get the chance to be able to move.
And there we go. There's that first turn of sleep we were talking about. The Arcanine is forced to take this turn, so we do see the Garchomp respond with that Dragon Claw doing roughly half of Arcanine's health. An Earth Power follow-up, is that enough? There's not quite enough to knock out the Arcanine. So still well alive and kicking here. And Cramorant does wake up, so takes his 3 turns of sleep, wakes up, goes for the Air Slash into Garchomp, and takes it down to the yellow HP. So Ken still in a quite a strong position here, I would say.
Yeah, we didn't see that speed control option that we were talking about coming out from this Cramorant, instead opting for that big damage onto the Garchomp, getting it just under 50%. Life Orb on the Garchomp, really helping it get that low. But it means that Ken still has the speed advantage here. Both Toadstool and Garchomp, when moving offensively, are going to be moving first, unless something like an extreme speed comes out from that Arcanine. But it is still sleeping. There's a good chance that it does not go for that extreme speed this turn, because it doesn't really want to wake up. But
it does wake
it
up,
is.
and Arcanine is going to go for that extreme speed, and it does move first because of priority, and it does knock out the Toadstool. Critical hit, I'm sure, does not matter at all. That Toadstool going down to a choice span Paranormal Extreme Speed. So that is a really strong turn coming out from Steinar here. We've yet to see Garchomp move. It does go for Dragon Claw into Cramorant. Doesn't even bring it down to its sash, and it gets a return. Arrokuda fired at it, dropping its defense and losing its Life Orb recoil as well. And we do see a Surf, and it should be enough to finish off the Garchomp. It is.
yeah,
Taking
so
the win here for Steinar. Very, very strong end game from Steinar. That was fun to watch.
ending the game, KOing both its opponent and its partner, and also catching a Pikachu just to round it out as its trophy for winning that game. But it was such a close game. Those sleep turns really key. That turn, I believe it was turn 2. The Cramorant had gone to sleep turn 1, but getting that first turn wake to get that Tailwind up really set up that Arcanine to come in as the Rillaboom went down really early, and then it swapped again. We saw more things go to sleep. The Tailwind then comes up on Ken's side, and his Pokemon just being naturally faster start moving first, reverse the roles, and then we see it again when in the end both teams had their speed control go down, and the speed was on Ken's side, but that extreme speed moving first, so crucial in that wake up on that Arcanine in those last few turns.
Yes, I would say there was 2 crucial turns. Turn 2, where the Cramorant wakes up after 1 turn of sleep, and that final turn there, where we see Arcanine wake up from that 1 turn of sleep. I feel like if we don't see Arcanine wake up there, then I think that the game probably would have gone to Ken at that stage, as you know, Arcanine would have been asleep, not going off the extreme speed. What I did like to see was the utilization of Toadstool from Ken, even though the Weezing went down fairly early. You know, making this Spore, you know, that Spore move go last because of its ability, is still managed to put Pokemon to sleep and taking damage in the meantime. Henry, what do you think adaptation-wise we could see from Game 2 from both of these players?
It'd be really interesting to see, especially from Ken's side, maybe something leaning a bit more into something we didn't talk about, being that Discharge Earthquake combination, that Disquake combination that we've seen a lot in past years, haven't really seen recently, but that Garchomp and the Kilowattrel both threatening such big damage, and big fast damage as well. That Cramorant, up until the very end of the game, was able to keep its Focus Sash intact, guaranteeing it at least another hit of those turns for Ken to take it down. When the Arcanine was on the field, we saw that Ken eventually had to split the damage to try to take down this Cramorant, because otherwise it wasn't going to be able to go down to something like a 1v1 against that Garchomp. So yeah, I'd really like to see the Garchomp come in a bit earlier, deal a bit more damage, and maybe preserve some of his other damage, other Pokemon for a bit of different damage for the end game. Something like that Weezing with that big special damage at the end could really come into impact for kind of a bit of a bulkier end game.
Yeah, certainly. I do agree with your analysis there. I will say Steiner, I want to see the Zoroark come out. Kind of want to see the Zoroark illusion itself as Cramorant and see what happens. But speaking of the game 2, we are ready to now go into the game 2 between these two players.
Yeah, that Zoroark's such an interesting option, especially since it's that more offensive set that than we normally see. But you've also got to remember when it comes out, it's not going to be able to copy those abilities. So it's not looking like that Arcanine is a Zoroark, but who knows, that Cramorant could be hiding something there. But there's that Garchomp and Kilowattrel that I was talking about before. Arcanine, while it got that Intimidate down, still really does not want to be taking any ground type moves from this Garchomp. And Kilowattrel very likely to be moving first in this. In this situation, able to either go for those big discharges since there is a Cramorant in front of it, or maybe just set up Tailwind for something in the back to deal out some more damage at a quicker pace like that Weezing. But there's so many different options here. The Terastallization on the Arcanine also gives it that option of moving before the Kilowattrel, taking those Earthquakes a bit better and dealing out a bit more damage. Likely to be chipping off a lot of damage from either of these Pokemon, potentially bringing the Kilowattrel down to something like its Focus Sash.
Yes, that's right. And we do see the Arcanine actually retreat away from those ground moves. And we bring out Cramorant. So there's two Cramorants on the field of Steinar. Kilowattrel going for that discharge. And as you said before, it's just taking out Zoroark with that special attack boost. That is gone. Cramorant is down to his Focus Sash. And it's paralyzed as well, just to add insult to injury here on the inside of Steinar. And yeah, Zoroark, obviously, that is Zoroark. No Focus Sash. It does go down.
The Kilowattrel really showing why it's so good next to these big physical attackers. If you want to intimidate them, you're boosting the Kilowattrel, and that discharge hitting so hard, able to take out the Zoroark, which looked like a Cramorant, so wasn't taking as much damage, but ended up taking more damage than the Cramorant thanks to that Focus Sash. But the Garchomp, Dragon Claw able to just finish off that Cramorant, with Ken really turning the tide here, and after kind of a more supportive lead in game 1, really ramping up the offense and just taking a clean double KO in this game too.
Yeah, my goodness, what an explosive turn one that was. Two Cramorants that don't really survive the turn. And now we see Arcanine come back out, activate that competitive on Kilowattrel again. So it's actually now +4. So any move it chooses to use here is going to hit anything on the side of Steiner's field very, very hard. And we do see now a response to Extreme Speed for Arcanine.
Yeah, those extreme speeds going first, even though Kilowattrel is so fast. But we saw last game the Air Slash come out into that Gastrodon, so we'd imagine more damage this time, but just going for that discharge again, guaranteeing the damage on the Arcanine and Garchomp, following up with an Earthquake. Not hitting as hard as it would like to now that it has that -2 to its attack stat. But it's more than enough to clean up that Arcanine and deal a bit of damage to this Gastrodon as that powerhouse of a bird Kilowattrel finally drops to an Ice Beam from this Gastrodon. But this Gastrodon is sitting all on its own against a Garchomp and two other Pokemon in the back. It might be a little too much for this Gastrodon to be able to handle.
It does surround that Garchomp with a 4-time super effective move. But Garchomp can Terastallize away from that with the Terra Ground as well. So this feels very difficult now. I will say I'm surprised that the discharge at +4 did not KO the Arcanine. I was surprised by that. I don't know about you, Henry, but I thought anything that would be touched by that Kilowattrel would just get knocked down in one hit. But we do see the Arcanine survive that particular move, then go down with a follow-up. So yeah, this is looking tough for Steinar now in this game too.
Yeah, so we've got a Terastallization coming out here. Not a defensive one from the Garchomp, but one from the Weezing, going for that Terra Water, making sure that it's not having to take anything like a super effective Earth Power. Garchomp moving first, getting down a bit of damage with that Dragon Claw. And Weezing, those big choice specs, Dazzling Gleam, the Gastrodon holding on by a thread and hitting it back with an Earth Power that does really good damage into that Weezing, but nowhere near as good as it would have been if it didn't go for that defensive Terastallization.
Yeah, we see it do about a half, which is a useful calculation for game 3, going into game 3. Both trainers obviously think about that the game now. So Gastrodon does finally go down here, giving Ken game 2 of this set between these two players.
Yeah, so it was such kind of a slow, drawn-out game in that first game 1. We saw lots of spores, we saw a couple of defensive switches, defensive Terastallizations on both sides. Coming into game 2, Ken taking charge, taking the lead, making sure to keep his momentum up from the Intimidate boost that the Kilowattrel got, taking a big double KO at turn 1, Kilowattrel not falling for the illusion that was Zoroark and just tearing straight through it, Garchomp backing that up, making sure it gets the second hit to get those KOs that you need around things like that Focus Sash on the Cramorant.
Yeah, that was a really explosive turn 1. I think the leads from Steinar was very difficult. Going into that, they had to make some plays, maybe make some calls on that turn 1. Ultimately, got them wrong. And both Cramorants, one was secretly Zoroark, did go down in that game 1. So game 3 now, it's going to be interesting between these two players because Steinar perhaps has to adapt for that, the Kilowattrel Garchomp lead. Ken, maybe knowing that, might switch up their leads again. So this could be an interesting game 3. Henry, what do you think Steinar could possibly do against this killer lead for Kilowattrel and Garchomp?
Well, the Kilowattrel is able to outspeed every Pokemon, likely able to outspeed on every Pokemon that Steinar can lead, so it's going to be able to get off those early tailwinds unless something like maybe that Rillaboom comes out from game 1. Going for those strong fake outs, having that Arcanine there, it deals a lot of damage, but you don't really want it to be taking a lot of damage, so maybe an adaptation to something like the Dragonite. It's got that Terra Fairy, so it doesn't really have to worry about those super effective hits from the Garchomp, but something like the Scale Shot, Kilowattrel with those boosts, able to hit very hard, but it's not the bulkiest of Pokemon, so if you can get an early KO on that with either something like a fake out Scale Shot, or even just threatening it to get a bit of a speed advantage with your Dragonite over it, it could really change the tide of that game, especially in the early game, so that you're not taking these big knockouts and kind of left on the back foot. You want to be able to proactively lead against your opponent, make sure you're setting the terms of what you want them to be able to react to you.
That's right, Henry, and we're going to see now who takes initiative in this game 3 as game 3 is ready for us to go into here. So Ken is leading with that Wheezing Toadstool again, the trusted combination from game 1, and Steinar does adapt with the Rillaboom Gastrodon lead.
Yeah, so adaptations for game 3 coming up from both trainers here. We actually see that it's not a Gastrodon at all, it's the Zoroark, but I don't think I've ever seen that on screen before. Wheezing, getting rid of that illusion ability, revealing the Zoroark for what it is. So there's not going to be any mind games here from Ken's side. He knows exactly what's on his opponent's side of the field. But there's that Rillaboom threatening the fake out onto the Wheezing, but this covert cloak on the Toadstool, just allowing it to get those fast spores off without having to worry about something like that fake out.
That's right, and Zoroark, illusion ruined here does just protect the spore. Does go into that Zoroark, so Zoroark does catch that with the protect, and we do see a returning Woodhammer without Grassy Terrain from the Rillaboom. It does take Toadstool down to its red HP bar here. Wheezing does lock in with the Choice Specs into the Dazzling Gleam just to get a bit of spread damage here on the field. Rillaboom now down to its yellow HP with that, so interesting turn 1.
Yeah, Wheezing choosing not to lock into those big sludge bombs that we saw take down the Rillaboom in that first game, but Rillaboom showing why it's so good even without that Grassy Terrain Woodhammer bringing that Toadstool so low. Of course, the Rillaboom being immune to the Spore, freely able to attack there, and I believe that Zoroark can be trained to be a bit faster than Toadstool, so it'll be interesting to see which of them moves first here. That Zoroark carrying Hyper Voice is capable of getting a good amount of damage onto both of these Pokemon, and if it moves first like that, taking down the Toadstool.
Toadstool down and out, and now Zoroark does activate that Throat Spray, giving it its +1 in its special attack stat here. So very threatening, obviously faster than a lot of things on Ken's side of the field. High horsepower follow-up by Rillaboom is faster than Wheezing. That does go down as well, so double KO here for the side of Steinar on game 3.
Yeah, we get another reversal of roles. Game 1, we had the speed control go up on Steinar's field, then on Ken's. Between game 1 and 2, we saw Steinar getting that game 1 in such a slow manner, and then game 2, Ken roaring out the bat. And now game 3, turn 2, we've got another double KO, but this time from Steinar's side of the field. The Zoroark is set up, but something we haven't seen yet, that Typhlosion carrying that Choice Scarf item. Quite likely it's going to be able to outspeed this Zoroark, which, unlike what we've normally seen on a lot of teams, is that Throat Spray. It doesn't have a Focus Sash there to protect it for a turn, and that Rillaboom really doesn't want to be taking any of these big fire-type attacks that could be coming out from this Typhlosion. And that's not even including the Kilowattrel that's on the field.
Yeah, you're right here. This is a threatening position from Ken, but We got a sneaky peek in the back there. We do see Arcanine in the back, so that does quite well against these two Pokemon on the side of Ken's field. Obviously, Intimidate would activate that competitive, so that's a bit dangerous there. But we do have that in the back, and we do see responding Terastallization from the side of Ken. It is that Terra Fire on this Typhlosion, so with the Choice Scarf, we'll be moving first and hitting very, very hard here with the Terra Fire. Eruption, I assume, is going to lock into, and we do see a responding Terastallization from Steinar. That's got to be the Rillaboom. It is, so the Rillaboom defensively Terastallizing into the Fire type, so it will resist these eruptions, but I don't know if it's going to be enough, but we'll find out if it does survive this double up here. So it is Protect from the Zoroark, so keeping itself safe on this turn. Not going to take any damage from Typhlosion or Kilowattrel. It is an eruption from Ken's side of the field from Typhlosion. Will this be enough to knock out the Rillaboom here? Does Rillaboom survive this attack? It does. Okay, so Rillaboom on yellow HP. It's a follow-up Air Slash. It's 1 HP! It takes it down to 1 HP. Rillaboom survives this turn.
Just to
But
flinch.
it gets flinched. Oh no.
Oh no, so these Pokemon, that Typhlosion firing on all cylinders, Terra Fire on the Typhlosion, Terra Fire on the Rillaboom, one wanting to do more damage, one really not wanting to take that damage. Rillaboom hangs on by a thread, ready to throw out that higher horsepower. And it just doesn't get the move off. That Air Slash doubled with that Eruption, causing the flinch. It was so close to getting the knockout. Grassy Glide coming out from this Rillaboom now, making sure that while it wasn't on a focus sash on 1 HP, this Kilowattrel's not going to end up on 1 either.
Indeed, and you know what? The Typhlosion response saying, Rillaboom, you survived the last turn, but this turn you are going down. Knocks out Rillaboom, and also knocks out the Zoroark outspeeding with the Choice Scarf item. That is 2 for 2 right now. This is going to be a close endgame, Henry.
It is. There's been such a sway in the number of Pokemon that are in this game. We had the quick and early 4 to 2, and now we've got a later 2 to 2. Typhlosion, Eruption, such a powerful move being able to take those 2 KOs, but Eruption staring down, not quite what it wants to be. There's a 4 times resist to that move in the Arcanine and a 2 times resist to that in the Gastrodon. And Kilowattrel doesn't really want to be looking at that Gastrodon either. Rock Slide is coming out from this Arcanine, really threatening, but it also has the option of just going for something like an Extreme Speed to just pick off that Kilowattrel and then start dealing good, consistent damage to this Typhlosion, which really isn't threatening nearly as much as it wants to be, even with those full HP and Terra Fire eruptions coming out.
It's not often you see a Typhlosion that look very sad on the field, but this might be it. So Kilowattrel protecting. Like you said, Henry, maybe from that Extreme Speed, we do see Arcanine lock into the Extreme Speed, into the Kilowattrel slot. It does protect, so taking no damage this turn. An Eruption fires back from Ken. How much it's going to do to these 2 Pokemon that resist it? Who knows? Here we go. Okay, not bad. You know what? That's respectable damage, especially on Arcanine that quad resists it. And it is an Earth Power return from Gastrodon. It's enough to knock out Typhlosion, leaving Ken with 1 Pokemon left to fight these 2 Pokemon on Steinar's side of the field.
Gastrodon showing, oh look, I can be bulky, but I can hit hard as well. I don't need my special attack boost from that Storm Drain. Just picking up the 1-hit KO on that Typhlosion with a big Earth Power. And yeah, this Kilowattrel doesn't have its Focus Sash. It's staring down an Arcanine, a Choice Band Arcanine locked into Extreme Speed. So it's going to be moving first. And it's more than enough.
It's more than enough to knock out this Kilowattrel, giving Steinar Norway the lead in this tiebreaker between these 2 Titans, Norway and Singapore. Poof, that was insane. I mean, if Rillaboom, it survives that turn with 1 HP, if it can return a high horsepower into Typhlosion, I don't know if it's enough to knock it out, but even if it's not, right, it's a Grassy Glide next turn is enough. So the flinch there is slightly unlucky from the side of Steinar, but you know what? Gastrodon and Arcanine in the back, they're trusty partners against that Typhlosion. We do see that Typhlosion come out in game 3, and you know what? It was great until it wasn't, with the Gastrodon and the Arcanine facing it down, so it couldn't really do much there.
Yeah, it was really interesting. We saw the Garchomp that really put in work. It was in that game too. It was threatening the Arcanine. It was getting those KOs, moving very quickly after the Kilowattrel to break those sashes, make sure things are actually going down. But we didn't see that in game 3. Ken instead opting for that Typhlosion, which really let the Arcanine kind of run away with the game at the end. Toad's Cruel being the only thing that can really deal at that big super effective damage with those Earth powers, but Toad's Cruel went down so early. That lead of Toad's Cruel Wheezing, having it there is really good supportively. If you can get the damage down where you need with something like an Acid Spray and a Sludge Bomb, an Acid Spray and a Dazzling Gleam, it can be huge and really impactful, but it went down a little bit too early. Thanks to that Rillaboom, which was a really good adjustment from Steinar from game 2. Having that fake out pressure, having just that spore immunity was really big. We didn't see all those things going to sleep like we did in game 1. We didn't see Kilowattrel being able to run away with the game. Really good adjustments from Steinar there, and yeah, that Arcanine was just able to clean up that end game.
Yeah, it's a very, very good set between these two for set 1, but I can actually reveal that the other 2 matches in the 3 versus 3 were won by Singapore. So Singapore getting their revenge on Norway, winning the next 2 games, taking them through to the groups, and unfortunately knocking Norway out of the competition. But I will say, what a cool team to feature on stream from Norway here with that Cramorant.
Both of those teams were so cool to see, and we both got to really see them flourish in the game plans that they wanted to do. Game 1, we saw that Spore, that neutralizing gas, we saw how much work it could put in. It just couldn't clinch out the game. Game 2, we saw that big powerhouse of a combination of that Discharge Earthquake coming out from Kilowattrel Garchomp. And then game 3, we saw just how much output that Arcanine and even the Gastrodon could put out. Getting that one-hit KO on the Typhlosion was really cool to see. Even the Cramorant, we got to see the Cramorant do its thing as well. And that was just, it was such a fun set.
It really was. I liked in game 1 that we saw Cramorant just on the side of the field by itself with Pikachu in its mouth. Just, just a classic, it will be a classic VGC scene. So with that, trainers, we will now go to our break. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be back soon.